Julian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. I used to be Penel Pestrunk.
Where'd your new first name come from?
I used to be that. I used to be my wife.
Okay. Oh, I got it.
Yeah. She's the frequent user of Zoom on this PC. So
You can change it.
I know. Then she'll say, "Why did you change it?"
And you change it back. It's not so hard.
Just a word of warning, I have terrible Wi-Fi here and low power on my device, so fingers crossed.
Okay.
Fingers crossed for our Wi-Fi as well.
I know. I'm out in California where all the high-tech people are. You think the Wi-Fi would work, wouldn't you?
Problem is Comcast is out there too.
I don't know who they are, but they're not working very well.
Huh.
It's going in and out, so, yeah.
So I see Jason Azar and council members and staff and two other people, Mariana Randazzo and someone who's labeled Jacobson.
That's me, Brian Jacobson. I'm with
Okay.
Jason Azar.
Oh, great. Okay, Brian.
Excuse me.
And
I'm sorry, this is Jason. I'm not going to turn my video on. I'm at my son's band concert, trying to. So I apologize for. Yeah, so I apologize for that, but I just wanted to still attend and listen in and answer any questions that might come up.
is the music any good?
If it's a band concert, I think the video is the least of your problems.
Yeah.
Little AC/DC never hurt me, buddy.
Sounds good.
Oh no, it's not that. Jazz band and symphonic band. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, that sounds good. So it's 6, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got a quorum of the council, and we've got Brian and Jason, and it looks like we have one resident. Mariana, are you a resident or just attending al fresco?
You're on mute.
Yeah, I think we've got her on. We may have her on mute. Okay, anyway, let's get started. I'm going to call the special village council meeting via Zoom to order May 7th, 2025. It's 6 p.m. And I'm going to assume that each council member has received, who's here, obviously it looks like everybody's here, has received the special invitation, so is here and has some material related to the meeting as well. And let me turn it over then to Julian to give us some background and make some introductions. Julian?
Okay, just quick background. Clark Azar was originally brought in by the village and the council to do the stormwater management work, and we had a separate contract for that. Then we had an architect engaged to assess the ADA compliance issues at the park. And the architect submitted a report with some ADA deficiencies, which was transmitted to Clark Azar. And the architect and Clark then essentially mutually determined that Clark is better positioned to move forward with these items and getting the ADA compliance work accomplished. So at that point, Adam Green, we were essentially finished with him. Clark Azar has now submitted a concept plan to address the issues of ADA compliance that were listed in the architect's report. And so they are effectively now, managing this moving forward along in conjunction with the stormwater plan and the ADA issues together to follow up with DPS and address all these issues. I'm going to have them go over the plan, but I just want to give two quick updates that I haven't even informed the council of because they've been recently received. One is we did hear from the land use attorney. We don't have the official opinion, but we have a draft, and she is now agreeing with the architect that the pergola area does need to be made accessible. She did not when she originally visited the site, but the architect report, and she also consulted with another ADA attorney that she knows who expressed an opinion that the pergola trellis area should be made accessible because it serves a primary function. So the plan you're going to see from Clark tonight includes a sidewalk connection to the pergola area to achieve ADA compliance. The second brief update is that there's a little piece of the pathway entering the park that is on the property of 4615 that's not in the village property. And we have reached out to the 4615 landlord, apartment owner, for their permission authorization to reconstruct the pathway for ADA compliance and to have their authorization to do the work that we need to do that's technically on their property line. It's a little sliver that you will see when Brian goes over the plan. So with that, I'll introduce Brian Jacobson, who's the senior landscape architect with Clark, and you've heard from Jason, who's the vice president, but I think Brian is going to walk us through the plan. And Brian, I'm going to make you co-host so you can share your screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Let me know when you can see that, please.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, excellent. At any time I'm speaking, please feel free to tell me you need me to zoom in or to stop zooming in too much.
Can you make it as large as possible?
Not and show the whole property, but what I will do as I speak is zoom in on specific areas.
Okay.
Excuse me.
You got an extension cord. I do. That's what you're down.
So very quickly, you all have a lovely
Bobby,
park.
could you ask people to mute, please? Some people are not muted.
Or Julian, if you can mute everybody except for Brian, that would be.
Now set before us and feed our souls with the.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So just very quickly, you have a lovely park, and the work that has been done out there, it makes it a really nice space, a really engaging, fun space. I can see you'd have a lot of activity, particularly on weekends and nice days there. And we were engaged, as Julian said, to do two things. Initially, to provide the stormwater management, because when you add new impervious surface, that stormwater will not soak in through, it causes it to run downhill. It causes it to go somewhere else. Rather than allow that water to be lost and run out into the street, run onto your neighbor's property, cause erosion and cause other problems, it has to be treated on the site. So what you're seeing here, and I'm not sure if you have all seen this or not, is we divided the site up into the areas, basically the directions where the water was already going. And so we can capture that by cutting up the area into basically 5 oddly shaped slivers of pie. The highest point is here, so water either runs, water pretty much runs radially out. So these various basins are some low ponding areas where the water in an initial rainstorm will be able to collect and have an opportunity to percolate into the soil. They're only about 6 inches deep, so we're not talking about standing water for any long length of time. We're talking about giving it enough time to soak into the soil. And these are also designed when there is a significant rainfall event that overtops these, that overtaxes these, the drainage is pointed to go in a safe direction. So you won't flood your whole site. You will flood some of it, but it's pointed down the hill, so we don't cause as many problems internally. So what our calculations have led us to is, by the way, I hope you can see my cursor here because I'll be pointing with it a lot. Okay.
We can.
Excellent. So we have these 3 basins, 5 basins to accept that water. The next thing we were asked to do, as Julian mentioned, was to respond to the ADA accessibility study that Mr. Green performed. In short, and again, I don't want to repeat too much of what Julian said, ADA requires in new construction that you provide an accessible route to, their term is primary activity spaces. So very simply, if you're not familiar with that, it's the places where you do things. And that is as simple as a gathering area, like this large circle. That's a primary function, a primary activity space. Your pergola is a primary activity space. Very simply, a little grass on the side, a little planting area is not necessarily a primary activity space. But if it's planned, if it's something that people are going to do things and we put a name on, it typically functions as a primary activity space. So how do we get accessibility to these different layers, to these different levels? We have to provide barrier-free access so that people in wheelchairs, people with mobility issues, the UPS guy with a hand cart with wheels on it, so that these people can reasonably get to these same spaces and share in those activities. You already had connecting routes, but there were some steep slopes that we had to overcome. Accessibility, ADA also looks at stairs. ADA accessibility is not exclusively barrier-free. People in wheelchairs can't necessarily get up and down stairs at all, but people with other mobility issues can, people with vision issues. So we have to address the different staircases to make sure they are accessible also. The good news is we didn't have too many problems there, a couple quick additions, and I can jump into that really quick. The staircase in the front, there's two cases of stairs. Basically, the dimensions were fine. Two items from the study, which of course were correct. You need a handrail on each side of every step, and you should have a visual warning at the edge of each step. So there's some visual contrast, light next to dark. So the quickest thing to do and the easiest thing to do is to put down a nosing tape, which is like you've probably seen them. It's an adhesive, heavy duty, 2-inch high contrast color tape that you can put down. It does wear out relatively quickly, a year or two maybe, depending on the use, but it's very easy for your maintenance staff to replace. It's very, very simple. It's tape. So the top of every tread, every step would have those at the very edge. And the reason is so people with vision issues, and as the report noted, it's rather dark and shady a lot of the time in this park. It will increase the contrast so you can see where the edge of the step is. So we'll do that on this main entrance stair. We'll do that on every staircase with one exception, which I'll come back to. Handrail on each side in this case. Handrail coming down into the playground area. I'll get to the ramp in just a minute. Handrail on each side coming down out of the playground area. And I understand this was originally a barbecue area. Stairs, so we should have the same edge protection and handrails. This stair, which is, we call them piano stones, the large Pennsylvania antique bluestone slabs. It would be very, very tough to make those ADA accessible, consistent with the requirements without major reconstruction. What we can do, and what we're suggesting, is we take out this little landing here, this little connection that's labeled stone, and fill it back with planting, either turf or shrubs or ground cover. It doesn't much matter, but we disconnect it from the rest of the walking surfaces. And
So,
it then becomes,
Mr. Jacobson,
yes, ma'am.
can you hear?
Brian,
I have
please.
a question there. Would that functionally make those sort of just decorative kind
Exactly.
of? Okay.
Exactly.
I
It
got it then.
becomes a statuary element, a garden element, And
Okay.
like a rock in the landscape, if you want to run out there and climb on it, that's fine. But it's not.
I understand. Okay.
Okay. I
Mhm.
don't want to beat it to death. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice. It could actually look like a remnant of old construction.
They are
Really
beautiful
nice.
stones. They are.
I
Mhm.
love working with Pennsylvania fieldstone. I really do.
Mhm.
Okay. So back to our main entrance. That had a pretty good slope on it, about 6%. If anything greater than any slope greater than 5% requires handrails on each side. It also requires a landing every maximum 30 vertical inches. So what we have to do is put in, flat landings every so often, which then actually makes the resulting slope a little bit steeper. You've got less run to make the same vertical climb. So we have 2 full-on ramps, these and with handrails on each side. They go from this dashed line to this dashed line, and another from here to here. And this dashed line is the edge of your walk now. This is the edge of the walk on the outside. So we're simplifying it a little bit. It widens out as it gets up to the top. And this would be concrete. So you're not going to have problems with slipping issues. You're not going to have problems with erosion of the gravel, which you probably fine gravel on a slope of more than 3% is subject to erosion. That gets us up to this level, to these 2 circles, and the circles themselves are pretty good. This sort of plaza where you can turn any direction in order to be accessible cannot exceed a 2% slope in any direction. If you're walking on a sidewalk, you really essentially can only go, in one direction back and forth. That slope could be more. But where they're large, just like a landing, these have to be lower than 2% in any direction. And good news is they're great. They're fine. Moving forward, you have the lovely set of stairs that come down to this future playground area. There's no easy way to do this. We have to do that on a ramp, but we kind of took advantage of the circle that's already there. We'll have to remove a portion of the stair here and put in a flat landing. But then, so you'll have almost like a little stage right here as a little wall exposed, and that can be just turned down concrete, part of the sidewalk construction. And then a ramp that spirals around and hugs the surface. And it's tight, but it just so happens to end right where these stairs begin. So this handrail will actually be able to continue and turn and run right down the stairs. And you have this nice flat little landing here. And that gets people into this space. And then a handrail on each side to let people who can use stairs easily come down into the rest of the site. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
it goes back, I was waiting for you to finish up with everything. It goes back to the beginning where you
Mhm.
talked about the runoffs and the
Mhm.
drainage
Mhm.
up at the top there on your diagram. So as you said, some of it will pond a little bit and it'll be absorbed by the land. And
Mhm.
then the rest of it will go somewhere else.
Yes, ma'am. That will
There are
basically.
times, well, there are times when
Sorry.
it does rain pretty hard here.
Mhm.
Is whatever is that little runoff, is it going, what is it washing away and how often will that have to be replenished so that it doesn't wash away the land and the dirt and gravel, whatever is there?
Basically, what's going to happen is in those sort of heavy rain events, you're
Mhm.
going to have a similar condition of runoff, similar amount of runoff to what you have right now. It's overtaxing the entire area's ability to absorb, or it's still absorbing the water, but there's more coming down.
Mhm.
So right now, if you have bare earth, it will be eroded. If you have bare earth after this plan, it will be eroded. So where you have turf, where you have planting, where you have mulch, you will have a lot of protection from that. Now, if a hurricane comes washing in and sits on top of us, everything is up for grabs. I'll be very honest with you.
Right.
But as long as you don't have bare earth today, now, or after this plan is done, you're in very good shape.
So we just have to make sure it keeps enough turf back there.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I know you have some problems with erosion in various locations now. And yeah, and there's various ways where you have an acute problem in a very focused area that you can address with, back here. I know you have some problems back here, a little bit of riprap, or you can do more site grading and flatten out the slopes a little bit and put in a stone garden. There's a ton of things you can do. The key is you don't want bare earth.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Of course.
I had one quick question. Sorry, I'm not in a spot where I can turn my camera on, but
Yes, sir.
I just want to confirm that the additional hardscaping that you're proposing to address the accessibility issues won't have an impact on the proposed mitigation, the groundwater mitigation that we started with. That you're not changing the percentages or changing the run lines in a way that will require us to go back to the drawing board to relocate some of the rain gardens or sort of otherwise change our calculus.
Well, short answer yes, and short answer no. We are proposing more impervious surface with these sidewalks. What we will do when we get the final plan for what you actually want is we'll go in and tweak these basins. And so some of them may need to get a little bit larger, but really that's about it. We're not going to have to redesign the entire site, and we're not going to give you a plan that needs you to go to another consultant later to make the basins you just built larger. We'll provide you basins that work with the final plan that we provide to you.
Great. And as best you can tell right now, we're talking about size of basins in the locations that we've identified. You don't think we would need to relocate any of these basins based on anything you're proposing?
No, sir. This one was very tight to grade in. The others, the other four had a lot more space, and even this one up here, we since put this walk in, and what we're planning to do anyway is to widen this out a little bit so it sort of works with these lines, so it's more concentric, more naturalistic looking. So there's room to make things bigger anyway. This one could get a little bit larger this way. This could widen out. We've got flexibility in the plan.
Great. Thank you.
Certainly.
So if you would go back up to the upper right-hand corner of the diagram. And I want to look at that basin in relation to where runoff is actually happening. And, there's already gullying going on. And it's towards the end of the pathway that's to the right.
In this area?
In that area, right. And it's right above the trail that goes in back of the property next door.
That's the trail here.
Yeah, but go to the right there, right at the corner there. It's running off. If you see where you have the schematic of the tree just below that, no, go down that one.
Okay.
All from there to the corner is basically bare area where ground cover has been destroyed by people and dogs. And so a lot of the dirt and the ground bluestone is running down. I don't think that the basin that you have there is going to catch that. And I just want to make sure that you've looked at specifically at that area to see what's going on and to see that the runoff from that border basically is going to be caught.
Well, I think
and if there's additional work that's going to need to be done to either, put stone in there or landscaping is not going to work because people are going to trample it, dog's going to trample it, and dog urine is going to burn it all out over time. So something needs to be done in that space.
Let me ask you, is this just it doesn't look like it's particularly steep slope at all in this area. Are people walking their dogs on it?
Yes.
Or are they taking a shortcut cross country to get somewhere?
No, they're walking their dogs on it too. to.
They're letting their dogs relieve themselves there.
And well, to relieve, probably they've relieved themselves before they get there, because if you go, they're walking that property line, basically. And there's also a nature trail. You've got it marked there that runs in back of the building next door. They're not that one. Go to that up in there.
There's a trail back here as well.
Along the border of the building. It's
Right.
like what, 4 feet, 3 feet wide?
Yeah, there's a bark trail that runs directly in back of that property for a while. They're gaining access there, and the runoff is before you get to the bark trail. It's running the ground bluestone off into that steeper slope into the creek. That needs to be addressed with some kind of fix, and the current basin won't do it.
I suspect one thing is if we provide a little bit more direct connection for them, they'll stay on it. If people have to, if there's a shortcut, they'll tend to walk off it, and that is probably part of your problem. Dogs hanging out there because there's a tree there. That's something that would be a larger design issue. You'd have to have barriers to keep them out of it.
It just has to do with the slope of that particular corner. The way that's what's happening. And if you visit the site, it's been the runoff and the gullying has been present since the park, just after the park was constructed. You can see what's going on and probably get an idea of what kind of remediation is necessary. It's not just a redirection of the trail.
Yeah, there's a lot of water, and it's, as you said, creating gullies in the gravel pathway. It's not just dogs and people, it's water.
I suspect part of it is, and I don't want to minimize it at all, once the water starts running and picks up speed, it starts eroding. And it's like, do you want to take medicine to treat the symptoms of a problem, or do you want to try to address the causes? So I think part of it is if we keep people off it, give them a direct path, and then perhaps have some kind of a soft barrier. And that might be some evergreen shrubs, that might be split rail fence, that might be large aggregate, large rock.
I agree with you, because I know a lot of people who, if you do give them directional, people follow directional, because a lot of people do use that as a shortcut as well to go across to Somerset, to go to activities at the pool and to get into the town area. So yes, it is used for a multitude of things. And if it would be good if we could figure out, if you can figure out how to do a directional.
There's several old studies that you're all probably aware of. It's called for where to put a sidewalk. It's called the cow path theory. And when I was in the College of Architecture, they talked about it, that one way is just to build whatever you want to build, wait for the cow paths to appear to see where people really want to go, and put a sidewalk on top of each one. Not always the best way to go, but that gets you 90% of the way there.
That's not the solution here.
Not exactly, but
no, but it's not. It has to do with how the water is running off across the existing trail.
Sure.
People can stay on the trail all they want, and they may be doing that now, but the gullying is happening on the trail itself.
That's what I see. That's what I see too.
I think it's a multi-prong approach, at least a two-prong. One is to make sure that that there is pathway suitable for people to use to keep them out of these other areas, to reduce the impacts on them, and then, to your point, to address those intermediate areas and make sure that stormwater isn't being concentrated to where it erodes. So you keep it spread out and keep it slowed down. So that may be filling the runnels that have already appeared. That may be putting in some stone to slow the water down. That may be sloping the grade a little bit to get water towards a basin or towards somewhere else. But I understand it's a concentrated issue, but I think there's a couple things going on that could be addressed.
So as you tweak the plan to address it, I would recommend that you, if you haven't already, visit that corner and
we'll take another look at it.
Yes, and design a solution for the problem that you see. And it could very well be in remediation and prevention in both of the ways you've described. And then
Yeah,
I had,
and I don't want to belabor it. I don't want to take a shotgun approach and do everything we possibly can. I do want to keep it reasonable, but
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of different things going on, and I think we can provide simple solutions to each thing, and those two together will get us a long way there.
okay, that'd be
We'll
great.
definitely
And
improve it.
then I had another question about the children's play area and the ramp
Certainly.
into the children's play area, if you can move down to
course.
there again. So this is already a relatively small space.
Mhm.
And my understanding is that we need 6 feet between the edge of any children's play structure
Correct.
and a wall. So how,
You need a 6-foot fall zone between any kind of structure, the structure and anything else. That's right.
so this is narrowing the diameter of this circular play area. What kind of diameter is left after the concrete
I can measure it
has
for you.
put in?
I can measure for you exactly, but I believe this was about a 6-foot wide. Sorry, I believe it was about a 4-foot wide path.
Okay. So that's going to decrease the
That is 4
diameter
feet.
quite a bit. Yeah.
Yes. So your resulting diameter is about 29 feet from the edge of the ramp to the existing wall. Whereas before, it looks like it was about almost 33. So we've lost, the numbers check out. So yes, we've lost 4 feet.
Okay.
So the question would be is, it's going to be considerably smaller. It's a child's area. What play toys can we put back there then if it's that small?
I don't think, and no disrespect intended, of course, but I don't think we're making it significantly smaller. We're taking 4 feet out of 33 feet. So you're at somewhere between 10 and 15% less. It's a chunk, but we're not taking 50% out, for example. So depending on what you already planned there, this might still accommodate it. You might lose a piece of equipment. You might, if you had 4 pieces of equipment, you might go to 2 or 3 larger pieces of equipment, or maybe a single piece of equipment that has multiple activities on it. A ground level climber that babies can pull themselves up to a standing position on, that grandma can lean against, and that the 12-year-old can climb all the way to the top and surf on her phone or whatever. This, to me, this kind of screams one nice item in the middle. It's a circle. You sort of want to put something statuary or monumental in the middle, or you want to line things up around the edges. So maybe this is a row of, you might be able to fit 3 rockers in that all point forward, so they'll point to the center, so the kids can sort of race each other when they're on them. Or you might have a seesaw type or a spinner in the middle. Spinners are great. I love spinners. There's some really nice ones. They're round. Put a round thing in the middle of a round space, and it just sort of works right away. And if you did that, that's good for a lot of ages. And you put a couple benches around here when mom and dad or grandma and grandpa get tired of spinning the kids, they can come sit down and still be close to the activity. I would tend to look at
Could you point again where those benches would be?
I'm sorry. Along this backed up towards the wall.
Okay.
So, a group
Sort of along
2.
the curve.
Along the curve. Yes, working with the curve. Exactly. You certainly could put some backed up against this ramp also, or instead of. That's where I would put them, as on the outside, facing in.
One thing, this is Jason. I was just going to jump in. If you have a specific piece of equipment from a manufacturer that you're thinking of, most manufacturers can send us the cut sheets of that, which include the fall zones, and we can just put that on the plan so that you'll be able to see the space that's left over.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Jason.
That's
Exactly.
smart. Then you have the exact dimensions.
Right. And I used to be, my certification is expired, but I used to be a certified playground safety inspector. So I've worked with these and I've designed playgrounds before. So we get that file, we can drop it in to scale. It'll show the structure. You'll be able to see it and understand it by what the line work looks like. And it will have the fall zones.
Brian,
Yes, ma'am.
would you have the skill set to be able to make a recommendation for us?
On play equipment?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Okay. That may be something we look to separately.
Okay.
Just when you ask for that, we just kind of need to know the budget, because it's not just about size, it's about materials. So if you had a budget in mind, we can work with manufacturers to find something that fills the space and also meets your budgetary requirements.
Okay, thank you. I think that's like a discussion offline for us. Yeah.
Yep.
So let me see whether Roy or Melanie or Michael have any questions before I look to others.
No, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Was that Roy?
Yes.
Okay. Michael, anything?
No, nothing from me, Bob.
Okay. Melanie, any questions?
No, nothing from me, thanks.
Okay. Did I miss anybody on council?
Dan?
Dan asked a question already, but Dan, do you have other ones?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So is there anybody else who's on the call? I see we have a number of residents, or I don't know whether they're residents, other people on the call who aren't council members and aren't affiliated with Jason Azar. Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask? This would be an opportunity to do it. And please, if you have a question, identify yourself and tell us where you live. Okay, so
Charlie Schwartz has his hand raised.
okay, Charlie, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. The notice for the meeting mentioned that your concept paper would be dealing with ADR requirements. Will you be speaking to that?
Charlie, this is Bobby. I saw that you joined the call late, and they were spoken to. The different accommodations relating to concrete pathways and landings and stone steps and literally stone steps. So they were, all of them were spoken to.
Well, I know that Clark Azar has the architect Adam Green produced a very comprehensive report, and that Clark Azar will be taking over the ADR. There were 16 specific points with subsections in his report. Are the things that you'll be doing dealing with each of those
Yes, sir.
items?
Yes, sir. And you may have missed the part where we discussed how to address the handrails and the staircases. A lot of his points were specifically towards that. So in short, any step or any ramp over 5% has to have a handrail on each side. So we are providing that throughout.
Jason, please don't repeat everything you've already said. The recording will be available, and I don't want to take other people's time here.
So I just have one. I just have one question.
Charlie, do you have other questions?
And just on that matter, the steps under the pergola, will there be railings, or will they be a ramp and a railing or railings?
There will be a handrail on each side of the stair. And to your point about a ramp, we haven't gotten to that part yet, how to enter this space accessibly, but I can do that now if you'd like.
Go ahead, since the question has been asked, and then we'll move on. Thanks.
Okay. So as I mentioned, from the main walk in, we need landings. We need a landing at the top. We need a landing at the bottom. So when you enter a space, you have to have a fairly flat, fairly level space before you encounter a ramp and as you transition off the ramp.
Another race.
You also have to have a ramp every 30 vertical inches. So however
Can you mute
long.
everybody? Excuse me, Jason. Excuse me, Brian. Julian, can you mute everybody, or would everybody please mute themselves? Thank you.
Difficult for me to mute everybody, but I'm trying.
Okay. Go ahead.
So
Brian. Thank you.
also when you have a ramp surface, you have to provide a landing every 30 vertical inches that you climb up. So if you're at a maximum slope on a ramp of 8.33%, that means if your ramp is 30 feet long, you also have to have a landing in the middle of it. We've got in excess of 30 vertical inches to get from down here up to the circle. So we have to have a landing in the middle anyway. We put it right here, and we are going to introduce a concrete sidewalk laterally to come in below the excuse me, below the pergola area, make a small cutout in the wall, 5 feet wide, and then you'll enter here midway between these little squares of the posts of the pergola. You'll enter right between two of them. And this, as it works out, is almost a flat walk, a flat sidewalk from end to end. So it turns out to be a really great entrance, a really easy one. The other ways to do that, as it happens, to get a ramp from here back down, to get a ramp around here, both would be very difficult. We don't have the run. We don't have the length available to do this kind of approach, to superimposing a ramp on the stair. This just works out real nice. We need the landing here anyway. It's a flat walk, and it comes in right at the back edge. So that's our solution to get accessible entry into the pergola area.
Brian, are there other aspects of your proposed plan that you'd like to describe to us before I open up to questions again from council members first?
Certainly. One last item is I think right now it's a gravel walk that essentially runs back here and comes back to this, I guess it was a barbecue area.
The map isn't on our screen anymore, so I don't know where you're talking about.
It's still there. It is still there, Martha, on mine.
That's weird. I'm sorry. I don't know. It's gone on mine.
I can stop sharing and reshare. That might.
It's gone for me.
Let me do that real quickly.
Or I have a printed out version if you just tell me.
Okay. So we're north of the main circles where the gravel walk curves around and goes to the old brick area with the stairs, and they look west. That does present some grading challenges. This is right now, as defined, a primary activity space, so we have to provide ADA access to it. The way to do that we have found is most of the length can be under 5%, which does not count as a ramp with capital R. So that means we don't need handrails on it. We still sort of regard it as one. So when we pass other sidewalks, we go ahead and put in a landing, a flat area. And then this stretch here, the last stretch of it, does need to be a ramp with a capital R and handrails on each side. So that one so we run from the high point here, we run down 5%, and then add to about 2 o'clock, and we go through a landing. We continue to about 11:30, another landing, and then from 11:30 all the way to the brick area is a ramp.
And what is that area supposed to be?
My understanding is that's a pre-existing area that had been a barbecue area. That I guess had been barbecue grills in the past there.
So if we decide to do away with the barbecue area, then we would not need to do all of that. That would not be a primary area as well.
That's correct.
I thought at one time we had that discussion about not, for a variety of other reasons, not having a barbecue area there. Food waste, attracting vermin, all of that sort of stuff. So
certainly everything from here, from about 1:30, 2 o'clock, all the way down, wouldn't be necessary at all if this were not a primary activity space. If it were demolished entirely, or conceivably if we if it were disconnected, like I think we could consider, like we considered for the stair, disconnecting it, and it just becomes statuary out in the landscape. Now you've got a lot more, it's more animated, you've got a lot more going on. So that may be a little bit of an issue. But certainly if it were demolished, you would not, I'd say for a fact, you would not need to provide access to that space any longer.
Also, keep in mind, I don't know if you mentioned it, that the patio itself is not compliant. So the patio would have to be
Excellent point.
rebuilt.
Thank you for
under
pointing that out.
So you have the cost of building the access to it, but then you also have to rebuild the patio, so it is compliant. So
you're saying
reconstructing.
you're
Yeah.
calling that barbecue thing a patio? Is that what you're referring to, Dan?
It's a primary
Jason.
activity area.
Okay.
So it would need to be compliant. So it's
Okay.
it's
So
the
it sounds
construction of
like
the
it
sidewalk
needs-
and the patio, or
So it
whatever you
sounds like
want
it
to call
needs to be torn down. Okay.
So it's the area on the map that says brick. Is that right?
Right.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So yes, that at the very least, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jason. The pavement in there, the brick paving, would have to be taken up and replaced or reset, because right now there's a 4% slope sort of toward the northeast. And as you remember, if it's a space where you can walk multiple directions, where you can turn around, that can't be more than 2 in any space in any direction.
So if that were taken out, we don't use it, where would we stop in not having to build more things?
Excuse me.
Could I just jump into the quick question, Brian,
Yes, sir.
related to all this?
Please.
I understood that former barbecue area functioned as effectively a retaining wall in that corner. So where you have the words flagstone steps, I thought that was more or less a retaining wall because of the steep slope there. So
Yes,
would
sir.
that, if we were just to demolish that, would we not need a retaining wall there, or would it require a lot of regrading?
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily need a retaining wall there, because the slopes would probably go back to what they used to be. You can see these are the contours that indicate the slope, and they would sort of just go back to where they were before. You would need to treat the space. You would need to stabilize the slope so that you don't have the bare earth. You could conceivably leave the wall there. I think you could take out the wall and stabilize it and go back to what it was before this was ever built and be just fine. You could conceivably take out the pavement, not put in the handrails, not have a paved connection to it, and you might have a nice piece of garden statuary that is a retaining wall. But if you take it out, you're going to need to regrade to smooth everything out, to fill the holes and smooth it out.
So I go back to my question. Where would
Yes,
it
ma'am.
stop that we would, if we don't use that, where would the building for us of a ramp, where would that ramp stop?
This walkway is there to provide access to 2 things. One is that patio space, and one is the connection to this trail in the northeast corner. So we would still want to connect from this circle to this trail. So essentially, now we would probably reshape it a little bit to make it prettier, but basically we don't need to go west past this landing.
Past that landing.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Exactly.
that's the marker. So you don't need to go past that landing. So
That's
that would
correct.
save in building all of that concrete there. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's what I just wanted to say.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get to that question before.
Martha, were you able to follow on your paper?
Yes, but I have some questions or concerns, so at the appropriate time, let me have the floor, okay?
Yeah, Brian, anything else?
No, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, Martha, go ahead then.
Okay, so what it sounds like to me is the tasks to make what's called the brick area that we're sometimes calling the fire pit accessible are challenging. So you're at least potentially recommending tearing it up. Is that right?
Our recommendation is not to remove it. Our recommendation is there is a way to make it accessible. If it's going to be there as it's used now, it has to be accessible.
Okay,
There are options.
So recommendation is to do that, not to tear it up.
No,
Is that
I
right?
think
No,
I'm sorry to jump in.
Go ahead,
Our
Jason.
charge was to address all the items in Adam Green's report.
Yes, yes, okay,
So that is what we did, and we engineered a solution to make it work.
okay,
The question is really for the council, as a decision for you, that if you want that area, it has to be accessible, but
okay.
you have the alternative. We're not going to recommend either or. We can accommodate either situation.
Okay, so if the council wanted to consider alternatives, it's sort of beyond my capability to imagine what they would be. So I am not advocating of a decision on that. I'd have to see what the options are. I don't know if others are just leaning to say, oh, take it out.
Take it out.
I think we need to think it through more carefully, and I appreciate what you're saying, Jason, that this is to address all aspects in the Adam Green report.
So I see Roy has his hand up. Nita, I see your hand, but I'm going to get to non-council members after the council has an opportunity to ask questions. So go ahead, Roy, if your
Thank
hand
you.
is still up.
So I know that there's a big erosion problem in the back, and I'm sure you took note of it when you were there. So I was just wondering if you can give a comment on, is that something we need to think about now or in the future, or just?
That is something that we should address now. We talked about that a little bit already. In short, there's probably a couple things going on up there. There's people walking across, taking shortcuts off the pathways.
Brian, ask Roy to clarify which area he's talking about. I'm not sure he's talking about that area.
I see. I'm sorry.
The whole back of the park where it falls off down to the, the ravine. So anywhere where you think there might be an erosion problem. I'm not limiting my question to a particular area.
I see. Erosion is something that you all should address. That was not specifically part of our scope. We can certainly provide recommendations to it. I see over here in this north area, it's probably not an issue with Cow Pass, with people walking through and beating down the growth. There's different aspects that you can address. You can what you need to do is slow down the water and spread it out. Turf works. Turf has its limitations. You have to mow it. Gravel, aggregate works. It's not always as nice as it could be. Plant material works, different kinds of plant material. So more aggressively rooted, deeper rooted, low native grasses, for example, which are also great to support pollinator species and butterflies and that. That's a nice option that works.
Okay, and would
Brian, excuse me, Roy, just for a second. Brian, that area that Roy is discussing actually is a conservation area that belongs to other property owners, which may include the county or the state or the neighboring village. It doesn't belong to the village of Friendship Heights.
So you're talking about across the property line.
Right.
This says Town of Somerset.
Right. So the question is, whose responsibility would it be to address whatever erosion is happening there? It's not the village's responsibility, as I understand it.
Okay, so then let me ask this question. If we don't address it and whoever owns that property doesn't address it, does that put any part of our park in jeopardy?
As they say, you want to stay away from terms like always and never.
Okay.
But I don't see that it does in what I'm seeing here. What you're saying is that if there is, I guess, erosion off the property, beyond the property line, is that going to cause an issue on your property? It would have to erode and undermine considerably, I think, to affect your property.
Okay. But it seems to be eroding pretty rapidly. That's why I'm asking. And I know rapidly it isn't there's no hard
It
definition.
depends. It depends exactly where the erosion is. I'm going to zoom in here. If you've got erosion occurring, and I'm just going to say hyperbolically 5 feet away from your property line,
Mhm.
that's eroding. That erosion will start to creep back uphill, backwards. And that becomes a little bit of a maintenance issue for you all. And that might be something that you could address strategically with a little bit of plant material, with a little bit of gravel, with a call to Somerset. Maybe they would go ahead and do something to help out. What I was thinking in terms of was a major issue. How much erosion do you need for this patio to fall down?
Right.
Or for a sidewalk to become unstable? I think would require a lot of erosion to creep across your property line and then undermine your structures.
And is there something we can do like ongoing to slow that up?
When it's on somebody else's property,
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's a bit of a gray area. When
Okay.
it's on your property, certainly you can put down some erosion control mats. You can put down the other stuff that we've talked about. There's a lot you can do.
Okay. Thank you.
That doesn't look bad.
What's happened back there, Brian, is that since the park has been closed, a goat trail has developed along the property line. And so I suspect, and that's because people are they're walking themselves in order to get to the back, get further down into the park behind 4701 Willard Avenue and into Willard Avenue Neighborhood Park. I suspect that once the fences are taken down and there's easy access to the park from all directions, that goat trail could potentially disappear, or we could encourage the property owners to, others could encourage the property owners to address that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other questions from council members?
I have one more.
Go ahead, Cheryl. And then Michael.
Brian,
just pointing out that Anita's been waiting patiently here.
Yeah, I was just going to let council members get there first and then go to others on the call. Thanks.
So Brian, back in the back, I go back to that area again. Yes. If as we kind of continue the discussion on erosion, if we decided, or whoever else decides to put possibly ground covering in that whole area back there, I'm pointing to it, but I don't have your cursor. So if we put ground covering from where your cursor is over to your right, and yes, in that area, would that help suck up a lot of the water and help with some of the erosion to deter it? And as Councilmember Pestrunk said, once that fencing come down, people will start going in the directional ways that they see to get back up in here. So would that help with putting more greenery back in there?
Let me be cagey. It's not going to hurt. Erosion is caused when water concentrates. When it's spread out, it's usually going slower and it has less carrying capacity. It's called. It's less ability to pick up and hold sediment. When it gets concentrated, it's stronger. It's moving faster. It's holding that soil in suspension and is able to transport it away. So putting in ground cover material to reinforce your property line will slow water down, will tend to physically filter also. Just slowing the water down, things that are suspended in it, the soil particles will fall out naturally. It will slow the water down so the water is not as strong anymore. And water that is coming across your property then is not quite as concentrated. Now, I will say what I'm looking at here in the grades, these are the contours. They're fairly uniform. I'm not seeing from the survey a whole lot of concentration of of water being caused from your property. I suspect that as it speeds up over here, maybe it's causing a little problem, or maybe there's something a runnel that this grading doesn't show. If there's something like that on your property, again, where the water is, if you slow the water down and keep it spread out and spread it out more, it will improve the downstream situation. So you could certainly do that. But if the erosion happens to be caused by, this little hiccup in the grade, this is telling me there's a little runnel right here. If that's not caused by your property, the water that you've spread out and slowed down crosses the property, it's going to concentrate a little bit and it's going to speed back up. So I don't want to be too cagey, but it depends. It's not going to make it worse. And certainly, rather than putting in turf or mulch, which is going to be a maintenance concern ongoing, putting in stone, it's going to be a maintenance concern ongoing because, putting in some kind of ground cover would be a nice way to go. And if you do that, I would suggest, some kind of a native erosion control mix, a low growing one. You're talking about mixes that come from the factory in 10, 20 different species of materials. You'll have different kinds. Some of them flower, some of them flower at different times. Some of them have nice fall color. They have deep roots, so they will resist getting pushed over and eroding. And all the, butterflies and bees and, are supported by those.
All right, cool. Thanks.
I love using those materials. I really do. I would, as much as you've got space, it would be nice to just fill this area with them.
Colorful. It'll look colorful too.
It'll be colorful. It'll be changing every season. It'll look a little bit different. And once they're established, there's typically very little maintenance. You mow it once a season, maybe. So you mow it 3 times a year. Sometimes you mow it once a year. That's all you have to do. Once it's established.
Will it grow in shade?
Some of the species will. Most of them like direct sunlight. But there are species there are mixes that are engineered and selected to grow under things like solar farms. So there's different species will take different levels of shade.
Okay. Let me see if there are other questions from council members. Are there any?
Yeah, Bobby, I've got one quick question. This is Dan.
Go ahead, Dan.
Recognizing that maybe there's an open question about the treatment of the brick in the back, the former fire pit, and a question about the how we might fill out the children's play area. Are all of the, I'll call them decisions, but that may not be the right word, that we're talking about here, the location of different accessibility solutions and the associated mitigation, the hardscaping mitigation, are they all connected? Or if we, for example, address accessibility at the pergola and identify the, kind of lock in on the location and at least notional size of the rain gardens, can we, move forward with parts of this while conversation continues around other parts? Or is it, hey, I got to know I have to have all the pieces before I can start any of this?
Again, not to be too cagey, it kind of depends. You probably want a full plan that provides a solution to everything. And what we've shown here is an example of something that does provide a solution to everything. There could be situations where you are able to phase the implementation. So if you simply remove the gravel, perhaps the gravel pathway that's here now to this patio area, you've disconnected it. It's no longer, it should be regarded as no longer a primary activity space. Even if you then plan to make it one again in the future, you may not need to put in all this sidewalk in phase 1. I would definitely recommend you you focus, if you're going to phase something, phase 1 would be the main entrance in. Phase 1 would be access to the pergola area. Phase 1 would be improving the staircase to provide the rails and the tape, probably everywhere. And then you can probably reevaluate how you term and what you do in the back. So I think there's an option to do it in 2 phases, but I would encourage you to have I think you should have a single plan available for direction where you're going. And then you may need to take, like I said, a couple steps to allow you to phase it, like disconnecting this back area.
So let me see, Dan, does that answer your question? Because then let me see if there's
Yeah,
a
perfectly.
solution.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Anita, thank you for your patience. Go ahead with your question.
My question goes back to the steps and the tape that you have to put on the steps. As I understand it, every step would have tape on it.
That's right, ma'am.
Okay.
And it would be right at the leading edge, the nosing, the place where you would slip off if you don't see it. In other words, on the top surface. This, what I've got on the screen, is an example of some that's commercially available. You can even get some of this from Amazon, so it's not a problem to just not something you really have to keep the
Well,
maintenance people keep in stock.
I want to go further than that. And my
Mhm.
question is, eventually you mentioned that you were going to have to replace that tape.
Mhm.
And it seems to me from an aesthetic point of view that once the tape gets ragged, it's just going to really look very unpleasant and unaesthetic.
You're absolutely correct, ma'am. It will.
Well, let me just finish the question.
Oh, please. I'm sorry.
So the question is, if you didn't use the tape, what could you use in place of it that might wear longer and not be as unaesthetic?
Let me just really quickly add that you're right. There is an aesthetic and there is a maintenance issue with this, but comparatively, this is cheap and easy to install. So as soon as one of them starts to come loose, a maintenance person on his or her next visit can come replace it on the spot. It's very cheap comparatively. Options, let me see here, are dealing with more hardscape reconstruction. And those are, here's a couple different, to bolt down something like this. This isn't the right color, but you've probably seen things like this.
Right. I'm not seeing that on my screen.
I'm sorry, is anybody else seeing it?
No.
No.
Okay, hang on. Okay, how about now?
Yes, that's fine.
Oh, okay, apologies.
Thank you.
The one I had was this one, which is a prefabricated aluminum type that is bolted on. This is not providing a color contrast, which is what we need. Slip resistance is an added benefit. This one provides color contrast. This is an interior one, and this one is routed in, but there's a number of different ones that are like this that are off the shelf that sit on top of what's already there. And you've probably seen a lot of these, particularly inside.
Yeah.
That's like that. So there's a number of these there's an exterior one that's commercially available. It depends on the exact shape of the nosing of the stair itself.
Of course, the stairs are stone.
They are
So
stone.
that would require careful grooving and.
Well, you probably don't want these that lap the front, that hang down over the front of the nosing. So you want the flatter ones that stay on top.
So which
more like this, maybe. These are higher cost. The stuff is bolted in. It's, it has to be cut with power tools. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think and read at the same time here to get you the good pictures so you can understand it.
So is that the one that you're thinking about? The one that one there?
I can't see exactly what this one is, but this would be sort of the overall look. But it's probably more like this, in that there's an extruded aluminum pan, 2 inches wide, for lack of a better word, but it sits on top like this does. We don't want one that rolls down the front though. It's going to be just flat, somewhat like that.
Well, maybe
Jason,
That's the
when
next
you
place
put
you go.
your proposal together, you could do a little bit of an investigation about how a more aesthetic thing would cost, that they could take, that the council could take into
Mhm.
consideration. And maybe you could show us what it was going to look like. And then get rid of the barbecue area and put the money from that towards making it look more aesthetic. And, and I guess, financial issues are going to come into play in terms of making a final decision. But it might, if you get something that's more sturdy, it will require less maintenance, so maybe it just cancels itself out.
You're right. There's trade-offs. There's different options depending on how much you want to spend now versus how much you want to spend later. And I'm always in the camp of spending a little bit more now to not have the issue later. In the case of this tape, it's really easy to replace, really quick and easy and cheap to replace. So that's why I thought that was a viable option. But that's up to you all which way you want to go. There's certainly ways to spend a whole lot more money on things like that as well. And one
Jason,
of them,
does
I
your,
have to-
Brian, does your
we have-
concept, excuse me, Anita, Brian, does your concept plan require a decision of exactly what kind of solution there is? Or does the concept plan really need to say that contrasting material will be placed?
we can certainly keep it more generic. Again, this is for your ADA compliance for any building code or building permit requirements. So it would be up on that track as far as what we are asked to do to provide you something that meets that provides solutions to the ADA study. We can keep it more generic. Once you bid this, you're going to need something to be more specific.
Right. Let me, Anita, if I may, just ask you to remove your hand raised so that I know that we've gotten to you. And then let me go back to Julian Mansfield for a second. Julian, what is needed to go forward? What kinds of approval are needed from the council tonight in order to allow Jason Azar folks to move forward with the concept plan?
Well, I think that's more a question for Brian to answer, but as I understand it, he's looking for approval of this plan or any modifications to this plan, such as removing the barbecue area and not requiring the sidewalk. But
That's exactly, that's the
they're
first step.
Yeah, they're looking for approval of the concept plan to move forward and then be able to submit. And I had a separate question for Brian about DPS and when they come back into this. Do they come back into this as soon as we approve this plan, or do we?
Once you approve the plan, we'll undoubtedly need to make some adjustments, particularly if we're taking things out or moving things. So once we have the approved concept plan, then we will revise the basins, the size of the basins, and then we'll go forward with them on the stormwater management plan aspect of it. So then we'll submit to them. First step is to finalize this plan. Second step is then to go ahead back to DPS on the stormwater.
Okay.
And Martha, I see you have a question, but let me ask, Roy, you've got a question too. Let me ask one more question about the barbecue area. If it were the decision of the council to make that brick area not a primary activity area, then does that require taking out the brick and putting other material down there so it is basically a grassy area or something like that?
Probably not. And the reason I'm equivocating is you've got access to it now in the form of a gravel walk. So by that design, the existing design, the existing condition, you're saying that people are supposed to go there. I think if you take out the existing walk at the same time, the existing gravel, and return this to a native condition or grass condition or whatever, you could probably leave the paving, the stair, and the wall just as something to look at in the field. You could also remove the pavement and fill it back up and grade it out and just have a freestanding retaining wall. I think you're probably pretty safe in just disconnecting it if that's what you want to do, and
Okay.
it's no longer primary activity.
Thank you.
Now,
Roy,
the second, pardon me, the second, I will qualify that by saying the second the village puts up a flyer saying meet us at the barbecue area or the patio, it definitely becomes a primary activity space. So, but
Okay.
if somebody wants to walk cross country to it, just like anywhere else, they're certainly allowed to do that, or you're allowing them to do that.
Okay, Martha and then Roy.
This isn't a question, this is an idea for moving forward. I am not comfortable with almost on the spot changing a design like this based on whatever, 10, 15 minutes of conversation without even seeing what it would look like. So I would be prepared to accept this concept plan, subject to review and approval by Adam Green on the drawings and subsequent RFP. And I would also be interested in engaging the Azar firm to recommend play equipment.
Okay, thanks, Martha. Roy?
Oh, okay, so I have two questions. One, I just want to clarify because we heard that the stormwater redesign would have to go back to the county. If we redesign any part of this park, does that also require a reapproval from the county?
If you're changing the amount, excuse me, of impervious area, it definitely needs to go back in. If you're adding sidewalk, if you're taking out native material, if you're adding a structure that has a roof on it, anything that could potentially cause additional runoff, you have to go to DPS for the approval.
So is what you're submitting tonight, would that, aside from the stormwater, would it require a reapproval?
Yes, the reapproval to any approval you already have. Yes.
Okay.
The basins that you're seeing now have not been submitted to
Okay.
DPS yet.
So it's a new permit in effect, and not a new permit, but a new approval process.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
And the other question is, on the steps to the pergola pit, I know there are railings on each far side.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have to add? Is there a legal requirement to have like intermediate railings as well?
Not in this case. The text of the ADA requirements has an exclusion for what they call monumental stairs.
Okay.
And so if you think about something like this, something like the Lincoln Memorial, the massive grand staircase, they understand that it would fundamentally change the design to have a rail every 6 or 7 feet.
Okay.
So in that case, monumental stair exclusion allows us to just put one on each side. Now you can choose to put more in if you have a population that wants or needs more handrails.
Right.
You could certainly line up another one on each of the pergola posts, or just 2 of them, and it wouldn't compromise the design too much. You would see it from the side, but in terms of people walking around, I don't think it would impact much.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But in summary, it's not required. This is consistent, it's compliant. Yeah.
So let me make a motion and see if there's support for it. I would move, and I would move that we address the main entrance areas. We accept the plan as it is to address the main entrance areas, to address the access to the pergola, to address the handrails as they've been described to us earlier, that we remove the stone, which is over on the left side of the park where you said that would disconnect the.
Here,
yeah, we remove the stone. We add the ramps that have been described, which access the pergola and the children's play area. And we take out the gravel access to what we've been calling the barbecue pit. So it's no longer identified as a primary activity area. And that's the direction we give to, my motion is to do those steps, make those adjustments to this concept plan, provide that direction to folks at Azar, and let them make the adjustments that they have to the stormwater basins. And then there's a final concept plan that can be submitted to the county, both for stormwater approvals and for whatever other approvals are needed, because the concept plan itself has to be submitted to the county, I would guess, in order to get approval. Is that right?
May I ask a quick question before you go to a
Yeah,
second?
go ahead. Yeah.
What we didn't mention directly is we've included a path, a trail connection to this existing trail. Now that's an extension of, this would be a bonded aggregate trail. Considering it's a trail, it can go up to 10% without needing handrails. This is at 8. So we're okay to put this in. If you are disconnecting this, are you saying that you want to maintain a connection to that trail still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, to that trail going off to the right, I would maintain a connection there.
Gotcha.
And
Thank you.
and in your revision, as you said, you probably need to go out there to look at the area where there's gullying going on and to address that in the revised concept plan as well. So that would be my motion to allow us to go forward with this. And I don't know whether there would be support for that or not.
It seems reasonable to go forward with it. I mean, I'd second it. I'm not sure what in the concept plan we're not approving, except for the barbecue, the major alteration of the barbecue area. I think we're basically accepting the concept plan, aren't we?
I think that's right, Michael.
Yeah.
And,
So
and I'd be happy to.
rather than enumerating everything, maybe the best thing to do is to move to accept the plan with the notation that we are eliminating the barbecue area as a primary, what is it called? The primary activity area. And we're approving that, well, he's already got the path into
Right.
It connects to the back path.
That was my motion.
Yeah, he seconded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I reformulated it and seconded it. So.
Okay. Is there discussion on the motion?
Yeah, Bobby, one question,
Yes,
and I don't know.
yes.
Oh.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm saying yes,
Dan.
but go ahead, Dan.
Dan,
Okay. Yeah, thanks. One quick question. I appreciate that this proposal is related to or executing on the guidance provided by Adam. Do either of these, I'm not sure who this question is to, maybe Julian, maybe the Azar folks. Do we have I'll call it a warranty on either of these, on either the initial plan, the list from the architect, or this proposal with respect to compliance? That is to say, if the county comes back and says, actually, you needed another rail here, or this, or without specificity, this element of the plan doesn't satisfy our expectations. Is there a kind of warranty of compliance that the additional adjustments and modifications can be made within this plan based on our current contractual relationship, or would we be going back for revisions, change orders, additional costs in the event that elements of this don't actually meet those legal requirements?
That's another one of those, I have to be a little bit cagey because it depends on what happens. Different reviewers may have different interpretations. So we might run into a situation where an individual reviewer says, no, I disagree. And I can tell you we've got a pretty safe design here now, so I don't anticipate anything significant. minor little tweaks are part of what we respond to when a review comes in. We will always have comments. We will always have to make a few tweaks. I would absolutely not anticipate any kind of massive redesign because we are designing within the requirements of ADA. I don't know if any of y'all have noticed, we have elevations where we've already preliminarily calculated that this stuff works. We've got percentages calculated, we've got elevations. So I think we're in a very safe state.
Okay,
Other
thanks.
questions? Martha, you had questions.
Yes, I'm not sure, Michael answered them or not, but Bob, your original motion said, keep this, and this. And so, of course, I wasn't writing that down. I was having a hard time even following it. Am I correct in understanding that you are suggesting adopting the entire concept plan that Azar has asserted addresses every one of Adam Green's ADA compliance issues, with the exception of making a change at the area that's called the brick and formerly called the fire pit? Is that your intent?
Yeah, to accept the concept plan with the exception of the pathway leading from what's now the landing going up to the upper right-hand corner down to the barbecue area that's labeled as brick. That's right. Accept the concept plan with that exception.
Okay, I'd like to amend the motion to do that, subject to review and approval by Adam Green on the drawings and subsequent RFP to get a second set of eyes. The second set of eyes part is not part of the amendment. So,
is there support for that amendment?
Can I ask a question about the amendment? So that amendment would go along with the elimination of that area as a primary area?
yes, for now. Mm-hmm.
Well, for now means you'd be.
I mean, I'm not happy with it, but I would like, I think it's sort of a last minute thought.
Okay.
But can I ask? I've heard from in other correspondence on this that Adam is no longer involved in this. I've also heard that Adam has sent to Azar and Brian his various issues that he had identified, and I thought I heard Brian say that he's addressed each one of those issues in the concept plan. So. What would be the process? Would we have to pay Adam to look at the work that Brian's already done? That seems a bit cumbersome. If Adam has done his work and Brian has looked at the work and responded to each one of those issues, why would we have to do this over again?
Is this my question? Is the question to me, Michael?
Yeah, well, yeah, that you're
okay,
suggesting.
Yes. Okay, to me, it's just purely QA. Making sure we're not missing something, and I want to do it carefully and correct going forward. And it shouldn't take very long.
Are there other questions for Martha on the amendment? Was that amendment? I
have a question.
Let me just see whether there was support for that amendment before I go forward. Anybody support that amendment?
Well,
that's my question. What is the amendment now?
The amendment.
The motion. What is the motion now? Because it was second.
Right. The original motion that's on the floor now is to accept the concept plan without the gravel and concrete path leading to the barbecue area.
And that was second.
And that was seconded. And then there was an amendment to that motion proposed by Martha. I'm trying to understand whether there was support for that.
I'll second that.
Is that Roy?
Yes.
Okay. So
before we second it, could you please be clear? It sounded like there's a whole nother motion. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
My understanding is that Martha's amendment is to make the first part contingent on a second look by Adam. Is that what his name is? Is that what, is that
Mhm.
correct, Martha?
Yes.
So I'm kind of where Michael,
Let me, I'm sorry.
Michael is.
Cheryl, excuse me, so Julian, you're there. What is our relationship with Adam at this point? What is the feasibility of what's been suggested?
Yeah, we don't have a contract with Adam at this point. He fulfilled his obligation on the original deal, so he's officially not working with us. But we can ask him for a proposal. In fact, I already have to send us a proposal for council consideration. So if the council chooses tonight to ask him to review, we can get a proposal from him to do that.
So in other words, he'd have to send us a proposal about what he would charge us to do a second review of the work that Azar and Brian have done. Is that right?
That's right.
So that is part of my question. So I'm trying to understand. So you're proposing, Martha's proposing that now we send another request, which you've already done, and have a proposal together to go back to the person who gave an okay, who has nothing to do with us, but now we want to bring him back for this one time, or is it for an indefinite time? And how much is he charging us to go and look at this to say yay or nay, or are we charging us to stay on?
My intent is to be a one-time thing as a quality control review to make sure that
And
these
what is he
drawings,
charging
excuse me,
us?
I'm finishing. To make sure this
That's not what I
plan
have.
and drawings fully comport with the report.
That's
It's
fine,
a
but that's not what I
one-time look.
asked. I
How
asked,
much?
was it a one-time or
I
is it
said it was a
indefinite?
one-time thing. That was the
I'm
beginning of my
asking
sentence.
Julian. Julian, is the contract that you're sending him for a one-time, and how much is his hourly rate?
We don't have that information, Cheryl. I've asked him for a proposal just to review this plan. He's going to submit a proposal with a fixed cost to review the plan. We don't
And
have
then we have to go back.
We don't have a contract with him at this point.
So then we'd have to reconvene whenever that comes back to decide if the cost of that proposal is worth it. So everything would be on hold until we decide whether this person, we want to hire him to look at this for one time. That's where we are.
Well, that's the question, whether that's what we would like to do tonight. There's been an amendment proposed to the original motion. And what I would suggest we do now, if there are no more questions, is we vote on that amendment. If that amendment passes, then that would require getting the information from Adam Green, and either this council or the next one would have to look at that and decide what to do. If the motion to amend fails, then the original motion is on the floor, and we'll see whether there's any discussion about it and go forward.
I don't think the council has to approve an agreement with Adam Green. I think that falls within the village manager's discretion.
It depends on the dollar amount.
Well, it's not. It's a one-time thing. It's certainly going to be $20,000.
So
let me.
Excuse me, Bobby. The only thing I clarify in what you say is that if Martha's amendment passes, the original motion can still be passed, and it just means that going ahead becomes contingent upon Adam's approval or second look or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't mean that we have to hold in abeyance the approval of what's been proposed here.
Correct.
Well, Martha, is that what are you? I'm not sure.
That's not what it said.
That's the intent of that motion, of your amendment to the motion. I think the amendment, as I understood it, was that we would hold in abeyance the approval of the concept plan until there was a confirmation from Adam Green that we could go forward.
Yeah, I'm not expecting, I don't know
There
if
we
I
are.
agree with the word abeyance, but yeah. Mhm.
Well,
Right.
we can't move
All
forward.
right, so it's that.
Okay, so Michael, that's the answer to the question. What I propose to do is that we vote on the amendment
That's
and
Bobby?
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt, Bobby, but just one question before we have that vote,
yes,
or
go
one
ahead, Dan.
observation maybe.
Yeah.
I've heard over the course of this conversation a little bit of, I don't know, concern maybe about, in particular, the treatment of the fire pit and kind of moving forward, the inclusion of a plan for the fire pit in your initial motion might give some people pause. And so I wonder if, and maybe I was misreading the conversation, but if the original motion is headed toward failure for at least a little bit more time to consider the treatment of the fire pit, that might factor into a question of whether, if we're going to wait anyway to evaluate what we might do with the fire pit, then getting some time to at least find out what Adam Green is going to cost might not lose us anything. If everyone's prepared to go ahead or potentially go ahead on the initial motion, then my point is moot. But if we're going to wait for if we're going to wait for the fire pit anyway, finding out what Adam might charge us is kind of a nothing lost decision.
Dan, I think what I heard as Brian was describing, if we take out the path from the fire pit, from there to there, that's right, and submit it submit the concept plan with that one correction, we're likely to get that concept plan approved. There might be little things that the county wants to address, and the decision about what would be done with that barbecue area could be made at a later date.
Well,
Because what we've done is to not show it as an accessible area, and it's simply sort of a feature there.
With an eye toward potentially rebuilding, or if future council or
That's right.
public
That's
interest
right.
is in reestablishing that, we could both rebuild the path and restructure the platform. I wonder what impact that might have on the final resolution of our mitigation, besides the location of the groundwater plants and whatnot. But
well, so then I can ask a question. I'm not sure if we want to repurpose that barbecue area into a primary area. Is it a simple task to just make it accessible if we're not doing it now? Maybe that's a question for Azar.
So we're kind of wandering all over the place. There's been a motion and an amendment to the motion. Let me call for a vote on the amendment and see how folks feel about it. And Martha, I suspect you want a roll call vote on this. So if you'd like to call a roll on the amendment.
Okay.
Wait, are we
I
voting on the
didn't hear a
amendment?
second on
or
the
On the-
amendment. so-
We're voting on the amendment only.
Which is the second set of eyes at quality control.
Which
But
is to
to be
ask-
honest with you, I didn't hear a second. So is there a second on that?
I think Roy seconded.
Roy
Okay.
seconded it. Go ahead,
Okay.
Martha.
Hold on a second. Okay. R
no,
against Measy,
No,
against Schaefer,
Yes.
for Solt, for Tyler,
No.
against White,
No.
against Pestrunk,
No,
against. Okay.
the motion fails 2, 4, 5 against. We're on the original motion, which is to accept the concept plan with the one exception that has been described. Is there any further discussion on that original motion?
Well, I had
can
a
we get
question.
oh yeah, I'm sorry, Roy.
I had a question for the engineer. Is that if we decide to, in the future, make that a primary area, how much more difficult would it be to put a path in as opposed to doing it now as part of this, what we're already doing?
I don't think it's going to be that difficult because essentially the design is already done. we can do one of two things. We can keep this sidewalk designed exactly like it is and where it is and stop construction at this landing. And then in the future, you can do this part of work. We know that design works. What we propose is to make this a little bit nicer connection here. So this might be, a curved connection. This could become gravel up to this point. So you would repurpose. But essentially your biggest point is the elevations, and the elevations are there to work. We're not going to make this significantly higher. We might end up making it a little bit lower, which means this connection is a little bit easier to make, if anything. I think it's going to be fine. We're not, by taking this piece out and massaging this, we aren't fundamentally changing the elevations. We're not fundamentally affecting what the solution will be.
So it wouldn't be a big deal to make that area accessible in the future. Okay.
And the worst that could happen, sir, is if we do end up changing these grades, more than a few hundredths, this ramp might need to get a little bit longer or a little bit shorter to account for that. You've got quite a bit of flexibility.
Thank you.
Other questions on the original motion? Then does everybody understand the motion?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the motion. Martha, you want to call the roll, please?
Sure. R,
Yes.
R4, Measy,
Yes.
4, Schaefer,
Yes.
4, Sold against Tyler,
Yes.
4, White,
Yes.
4, Pestrunk,
Yes.
4.
Motion carries 6-1. So Brian, you have the direction you need to finish off the concept plan and get it submitted to whomever it needs to get submitted to.
Yes, sir.
And your primary point of contact on this remains Julian Mansfield, the village manager. So I want to thank you, Brian, for your presentation and your the answers to the questions that you've given. Thank council members for accommodating a special meeting of the council. Thank residents who have been present for having the interest in the park. And Julian, let me turn it back to you to ask if there's anything else from your perspective that the council needs to do tonight.
Before Brian goes, I want to thank him as well. I think one of the most professional presentations we've had certainly
nice
in the park. It's a terrific one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Very clear in
Thank you,
understanding it. Thank you.
I very much enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting each of you, and I look forward to meeting you all out when this work is done for a barbecue. Just
not in the bar, not in the barbecue area.
No barbecues.
Julian, anything else that you need?
No, I'll follow up with Brian. I agree. You did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you all again. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Our meeting is adjourned. Thanks again.
Night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everybody.
Are you off?